I may have been in love with Andy, but I didn't want to do anything with him physically. I was trained, socialized by our society that that was evil, that that was hateful. And so it made me sick to my stomach to just think of having sex with a guy. I just wanted to go off to Wyoming and be cowboys with him. Hi, this is Mike Balaban. Welcome to another episode of BAMMER Tales. Today I'd like to share with you the story of my upbringing and my childhood and when I first began to realize that I was different and probably gay. I've already discussed what it was like in a previous episode, growing up in the 1950s and 60s, figuring out that you were queer, but I haven't shared my own personal story. My parents were from the North. They transplanted to the Deep South, where we were always made to feel different. They were fairly well off in a county full of not very economically well off peers. They were educated, having met at an Ivy League university, among residents who mostly hadn't gone to college, or if they did, they went to a local junior college. And we were extremely liberal in a very conservative area. But beyond those facts, we were the only Jewish family in the county, which really made us stand out. And this is an era and an area where they let us know that Jews had been responsible for killing Christ. So by substitution, we were guilty. Fortunately, as we got to know them and vice versa, they kind of let us off the hook for that sin. And they thought we weren't bad people. But still, I grew up on this cattle ranch, 5 miles outside of a town of 2,000 people, where my only playmates until I was 5 years old were the two black sons of the sharecroppers who rented the shanty on our farm from us. And then when I turned 5, all of a sudden, I couldn't play with them anymore. This was a racially segregated county where we didn't go to the same schools. So they remained in the shanty, and I suddenly started going to the local kindergarten run by Mrs. Bush in her home. And there were maybe 15 or 20 students there, including me. And you can imagine, I've never been among other kids my own age who are white. And suddenly I am put into this room with 15 or 20 of them. I was petrified. I was anxious. I was nervous. I felt the difference my family represented from everyone else there, and I didn't know what to do. And one thing kind of saved me. Upon arriving and being introduced to the kids and starting to play with them, I noticed one of the children, named Andy, a 5-year-old like me, was just so cute and so charismatic, even at that young age. His father was the football coach. He was going to ultimately be the star on every sports team by the time he graduated from high school, Andy, that is. And there was a charisma in him that was obvious, and it drew me towards him. And he had these freckles and this light brown hair and this cute smile. And I just wanted to be his best friend. I was just drawn to him. And that helped me overcome my anxiety. Now, I'm not sure if at 5 years of age I knew I couldn't express that attraction or not. It became evident not too long thereafter, but let's assume for some reason I held my enthusiasm in check. I just made the decision that I wanted to be his best friend, and I tried my best to achieve that honor. Never really succeeded, but I got to be part of his inner core. Now, one day during the kindergarten lunchtime, Andy suggested to this girl, Sherry, and I, that the three of us go behind the big oak tree and play doctor. I think kids of every age explore in games like this, so it's not all that unusual. Well, I was both excited and petrified. Excited because I was curious what Andy looked like, not so much Sherry. I was anxious because I had a hidden secret. I had a small raised mole in my groin, just above my penis, that already at age 5 I felt represented everything about me that was shameful and embarrassing. All those differences I mentioned between me and all the other kids, they were summed up in that one little scar, that little mole. So I was unwilling to expose myself. What could I do? And then I came up with a brilliant idea. Hey, you guys, why don't you go ahead and play? I'm going to stand here at the oak tree and watch out and make sure Mrs. Butch doesn't interrupt us and discover what we're doing, because that would be horrible. So you play. We can't afford to have her discover us." And they were fine with it, and they continued playing, and I watched covetously from a few feet away. And in the end, it was not much to see. What little girls have nothing and little boys have almost nothing at age 5. But it quaked my curiosity. That was it. Andy remained one of my best friends. I had a crush on him for the next 5 or 10 years. I never got super close. I never really experimented, sexually with any of the peers my age. One thing about me was I've always been attracted to one person at a time. So I didn't really notice the other boys. The other thing about me was that when I began to be aware very early on that we weren't supposed to be attracted to other boys, I was able to cover up any hint of that. And unlike so many other young would-be gay boys, I wasn't effeminate. I wasn't affected. I didn't have interest in the things that girls liked, like dolls or hairdressing or what have you. I mean, not to be stereotypical, but I was a boy's boy. In every way except my crush on Andy, I was like all my other peers. And so I joined Boy Scouts with him. I went to the jamborees. I was in the 4-H club with my cow, and I had the grand champion steer at the state fair. I was boisterous. I was boyish. Everything about me was just like them, except for this secret I had of a crush on Andy. And so that's kind of, on the one hand, held me in good stead my whole life. I never got really bullied for being gay. But on the other hand, I turned my own homophobia inwardly on myself and hated myself because of it, even if no one else outside was bullying me. So this was my first crush. It lasted through my 10th grade until we moved to Connecticut, and I began going to high school there. And I developed another crush on another boy there, and another one in college in my fraternity, and so on until I finally came out. But it took me overcoming the antipathy and the loathing that society had drilled into me about what it was like to be homosexual. I could not even contemplate the idea of any kind of physical expression of attraction to Andy or anyone else because it made me sick at my stomach. I may have been in love with Andy, but I didn't want to do anything with him physically. I was trained, socialized by our society that was evil, that was hateful. And so it made me sick to my stomach to just think of having sex with a guy. I just wanted to go off to Wyoming and be cowboys with him. So anyway, that's my story. I hope to hear from you with some comments about your own. Thank you for listening to another episode of BAMMER Tales. This is Mike Balaban.